What's up, collectors? Welcome back to another Top 10 video. Today, I'm going to be counting down 10 movies that I believe deserve the boutique Blu-ray treatment. I sat down with my good buddy Connor Nielsen, and we each threw out 10 films that either don't have a Blu-ray release at all, or maybe have a slimmed-down, bare-bones release, but we think they deserve a better one. So, let's jump over to that call. I hope you enjoy the video, and let's get right into it. I can't invite him because it'll be weird for my future spouse, but I can invite Connor and it'll be like he's there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about our top 10 Blu-rays that we wish existed. What did you think about this as an exercise? Was it fun? Was it hard? Was it easy?
Well, yeah. If it was just Blu-rays that existed, I think this would be a little harder for me anyways.
True.
But I was kind of looking at this more as like I want these to get like the boutique treatment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's only like 2 or 3 here that don't have a Blu-ray at all.
Yeah. So that would be interesting because we came at it from kind of a different angle. That was my main goal, was like, I didn't look at my Blu-ray shelf at all during this. Like, I didn't think about movies that I already like, or I didn't think about movies that I like really love and already own. I was thinking more about things that I don't own because they either don't have a Blu-ray at all, or they just have like a very minimal, like ugly, just plastic case, ugly artwork Blu-ray, and I want them to get a better treatment. So if I was going to include like everything, there would probably be different things on this list, but this is mostly things that I just want to own, and I don't have a way to do that right now. So that's my first caveat. My second caveat is, as I was going through this list, I kept coming up with things that like filmmakers that I really love, but they kept coming up multiple times, and I was like, let me just cheat and make a box set that includes all of these, and but that kept happening, and it was like taking up too much of my list. So we're gonna do another video where we just count down our top 10 box sets that we wish existed, and that'll be coming in the near future. I'm gonna do that again with Connor, so look forward to that video. But in case you're wondering why things that I really like Sabu or Carol Zeman aren't on here, that's because those are going to be in that video. A little spoiler alert. But people who know me know that that's going to show up there. So we're going to do that another day. But today we're just talking about individual releases, 10 films. We're each going to throw out 10 films that we think deserve the boutique treatment. And I will let my illustrious co-host Connor go first. What is your number 10, sir?
There's like 3 or 4 different categories that I kind of picked from. I didn't arrange this by category. This is all kind of arranged by preference of what I would like to see. But I think my first pick is going to be a little bit of people shaking their heads because this already did kind of get a boutique release. But it's out of print and I didn't get it. So that is Dawn of the Dead from 1978, the George A. Romero classic. I would consider this top 20 all-time movie, 10 out of 10. Absolutely love it.
Wow, that's crazy.
One of the best films that's ever been made. I grew up in high school. Throughout high school, I loved Night of the Living Dead. And people always told me Dawn of the Dead was better. The inner contrarian in me always kind of doubted that. But they were right. It's better. But what's interesting about those 2 Romero Dead films, the first 2, they almost are sort of polar opposite in terms of availability. Night of the Living Dead is a public domain film. There is a surplus of releases for that film in a wide range. You can look it up on YouTube. You can get it from Criterion and everything in between. However, Dawn of the Dead is a different story. Whoever owns the distribution rights for that film and also the other Romero film called Martin, those are kind of the 2 notorious ones. Whoever owns the distribution rights, that guy is a total Grinch because he has made it very minimal availability, where if you weren't collecting Blu-rays in 2008, you didn't get Dawn of the Dead on Blu-ray. There was like 1 pressing in the United States and North America, and it was done. However, I want to say 2 years ago now, Second Sight, the wonderful UK, I believe they're UK-based boutique label, they put out a mondo doorstop of a release for Dawn of the Dead on 4K, and part of what my picking is it's very America-centric, because that's where I live, and in terms of availability.
Yeah, totally.
Now 4K
Region
is...
A. We kind of need Region A releases. We haven't gone full region free yet. I know some of the people that watch this video are going to be like, well, these exist. Very nice versions. You can find them. But we're still still lowly Region A beginner rookie level collectors.
Yeah, we're on our first 1,000 each, right? So, when it comes to 4K discs, though, as of right now, I still believe that 4K discs are not region locked. Mm-hmm. So after they put out like the doorstop collector's edition of Dawn of the Dead, they did put out just a normal standard. You can just get the 4K and like the 3 different cuts of the movie version that you could, I think, get in the States through Zavi, because they, of course, are getting it from the UK. And I looked it up recently, and I don't know if I'm just bad at internet investigation. I couldn't find it, so I'm assuming it's out of print again. So unless Criterion gets their hands on it and I can put it right next to my Night of the Living Dead, because they did do a new transfer and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if the distribution is, maybe the Grinch's heart is growing 3 times its size. I don't know. I hope it does, but if Arrow gets their hands on it, if Severin gets their hands on it, if Blue Underground gets their hands on it, I don't care. I just want Dawn of the Dead, one of the greatest films of all time, to get a nice 4K readily available release in the States, preferably similar to what Second Sight put out that has 3 versions of the film. What's your number 10, DJ?
My number 10, and I can already tell that mine are going to be a little more weird and out there than your picks seem to be. My number 10 is a science fiction film from 1976, and this one I mainly put on the list because I don't even know how it hasn't happened yet. It seems so perfect. I think this could sit right on the shelf next to your Dune and your Legend, your Arrow releases with the big, beautiful boxes. It's Logan's Run. How has this not happened? It feels so perfect for Arrow, specifically Arrow for this one. Logan's Run, if you don't know, is a science fiction film, like I said, from 1976, set in the future, where in a city, like a world that is completely a big, giant dome. Everyone's locked in this dome, and no one can live past the age of 30. Everyone is killed off at the age of 30. In this crazy ritual called the Carousel, where they kind of give people hope and have this kind of lie that you can survive, but everyone dies at age 30, and we follow the titular Logan, who, why it's called Logan's Run, is he's a runner. He's unraveling this kind of conspiracy, and he's trying to escape the Dome City, and it kind of turns into like a fantasy film. It starts out very hard science fiction, but it kind of just follows his like journey as he goes through the city and like meets all these different adventure. He like meets these like lost boys that are like living underneath the city, and then he like just did weird monster ice creature thing. It's pretty cool. I was very entertained by it. It also has all of these themes of religion and societal norms that you're just born with and you never question. And he's kind of like having a deconstruction, which it's very fascinating. It's interesting to think about. I was thinking about it afterwards, and it's also very just entertaining and a fun movie. Me and my wife watched it together last year, I think, and it was really fun. And I would love to watch it again. There is like just a bare bones single disc release of it on Blu-ray, but has a not great cover, and I'm bummed that that's probably going to be the way I have to buy it. So Arrow, hurry up and release this, because I think it would fit in perfectly with your catalog.
I agree. I'm surprised that you like. I just assumed that was kind of a part of that. Yeah, that whole scene. There
is there's a across the pond steelbook, I think. It might be Zavi. But yeah, as far as over here, we do not have a cool release of it. That's my number 10, Logan's Run.
Moving into number 9.
Let's do it.
I'm curious if this is going to be on your list anywhere. My number 9 is the most recent winner of Best Picture at the Academy Awards, Coda.
Did not make my list. I will say it is in my honorable mentions, though. I was going to bring it up, so I'm glad you're talking about it.
I'm picking this mostly as a field test for how Apple and streaming services like Disney Plus or something are going to handle physical release, if at all.
That's true.
Now,
That's true. Netflix has got Criterion locked down, but maybe someone else could pick up Apple.
And Amazon has also been releasing through Criterion a few of their titles, but some of them they just put out on Blu-ray. So
Yeah.
I am curious about Apple because there was the Sofia Coppola film On the Rocks starring Rashida Jones and Bill Murray. That
I started that. Never finished it.
that was actually an A24 film and one of a few that they released through Apple TV Plus. I never watched it myself, but I did see that as just a bare bones, no digital copy, as I don't think they would, but Blu-ray release in stores. But I don't know if that was because it is A24 and they have a long-standing physical media distribution with Lionsgate.
Maybe so.
So so that has me curious. Now with something like Coda, with it being a Best Picture winner and having that sort of prestige with it, every other Best Picture winner has some kind of physical release, and maybe like because of that prestige that maybe earns it, that sort of thing. Maybe they're not going to put out a physical release for everything they make or fund or purchase or whatever, but something special like that, maybe they could.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Big Apple across it, big Best Picture winner. Like, look at us, we are the. It'll definitely say first streaming service to win Best Picture on the cover. A
Absolutely.
sticker of some kind will be on there.
Well, now it has me curious though. Will Apple just put it out themselves? And if what they put out themselves, will they sort of give it a boutique release or just a bare bones, here it is physically?
Yeah, because we don't know. I mean, that's like one studio, like you said, they've put out some things, or like one thing, but we don't know if they're going to like go all out like Warner's does. It's a good question.
Or if they'll maybe try to see how, because boutique Blu-ray, like that's where the sales in Blu-ray kind of are, is like catering to collectors. If they see that market and for certain specific things where people like me collect every Best Picture winner. You know what I mean? And I feel like of those who collect, buying Best Picture winners is kind of one of the first things that maybe people do, or it's a very common thing people do. And maybe they can maybe try to get in on every once in a while doing like a sort of prestigious boutique release of one of their own, or if they'll outsource it to a Criterion, or I got to think of another one. What's the other one? People in the comments are going to get after me for this one. I'll think of one. Anyways, that's my number 9, Coda.
Sweet. All right. Very different direction. My number 9 is from 1944. It is a lovely little film from the great Frank Capra. Does not have a Blu-ray release, which is a crime. It's Arsenic and Old Lace. Right? Such a good movie. I watched this last October. It is a Halloween film. Not a Michael Myers film, but a film that takes place on the night of Halloween. It is Frank Capra. This is It's a Wonderful Life. It happened one night. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. All the greats. This is more comedic than those. This is a film with Cary Grant. He just got married, and right before he leaves for his honeymoon, he gets caught up in this crime that's involving members of his family and his mother, and it's basically just Cary Grant doing his scatterbrain, like Cary Grant thing, like, how am I going to get out of this? He's trying to keep his new wife from finding out about it. He's trying to get his mother out of this, and he's trying to take care of his like mentally ill brother or cousin. I can't remember what relation he is, but he gets mixed up in this whole thing. It's kind of got like a screwball comedy vibe, which I know Connor has left the chat because he has no interest in those. But this one is very funny, and it's very dark for the time. I don't know. I say for the time. I'm finding out as I watch a lot more older movies that we just did dark movies a lot back then. We kind of didn't shy away from that stuff like it is perceived these days. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, and this is one that I would like to watch every year in October now, and I can't because I don't own it. So if it's not streaming, I'm kind of out of luck. But there is currently no Blu-ray for this that I can find. There is a DVD that I've seen on eBay. I guess I can pick that up. But yeah, I really want a Blu-ray for this. I could see it happening. It seems right up Kino Lorber. That seems totally like a Kino Lorber release that they would put out. Probably not a lot of bonus features for it. Just a good transfer, hopefully. But I could see Criterion doing it. Criterion did do Frank Capra's It Happened One Night. I have that, and that's another great movie. It's kind of along those lines. Maybe not as influential as that one is, but I could see it happening. I'll buy it. Hopefully it happens someday, because I really want to own Arsenic and Old Lace on Blu-ray.
That's a good pick. I, again, just assumed it had been released through a Columbia thing. I mean, I'm just assuming it's a Columbia picture because Frank Capra seems to have worked with a company that may or may not have been Columbia, that Columbia either is or acquired. But you say a screwball comedy vibe. I'm willing to give it a chance because Frank Capra, the great Cary Grant, obviously, but also Peter Lorre's in that movie. And it should be known that I am a huge fan of Peter Lorre.
Oh,
I love
yeah,
that guy.
he's great in it. And it is less screwball comedy, more dark comedy / situational comedy. Like, there's not like a person that's creating all the problems, which is like what you hate. It's just like, I mean, it is someone's fault, but it is just kind of like, oh, this horrible situation that we're in, how can we get out of it? And funny things come from that. It's not like, oh, there's this horrible character, but isn't she so charming?
Yeah. That's actually been on my radar for a long time. I remember being in high school and an old couple turned around and said, "You should watch Arsenic and Old Lace. That's a great movie."
In high school, you went to high school with an old couple sitting in front of you?
Yes, precisely.
Wow.
They were held back.
So progressive, that Oregon high school.
You know it. All right, shall we move on to my number 8?
We shall.
So number 8, this is going to fall kind of back into the same category of Dawn of the Dead, where this did recently get a Blu-ray release. So people who are kind of maybe wanting me to maybe get really creative about stuff that hasn't gotten a proper release are going to say, "Come on, for real." But it's me, and anyone who knows me knows I love David Lynch, so I have to go with The Straight Story. This recently, the Australian label Imprint put out a really cool packaging release that has some bonus features for The Straight Story, David Lynch's 1999 G-rated road trip film starring Richard Farnsworth in one of the greatest performances ever.
Sorry, that sentence just kept getting weirder and weirder as you said it. The G-rated road trip film from David Lynch.
David Lynch, and it's of course, but it's a Disney film, so
even weirder.
See, and that's why it's on my list, because I need to throw a pot shot at Disney.
Yeah, they're not going to release it.
No, they're not. And
I'm surprised they even put it on Disney Plus.
Me too, and I'm surprised they would even give it to Imprint. But I also don't even see them. But like I said, that's an Australian Region B label. As far as Region A is concerned, they're not putting out any of their catalog titles, whether it be from Disney or 20th Century Fox. All of the 20th Century Fox titles they have been putting out, like Home Alone, or they're going to be putting out Heat or Alien. All of those were
Home Alone is another release.
Yeah, but all of those 4K releases they've been doing that are from their 20th Century Fox 20th Century Studios, those were all transfers that were underway before the merger. So since then, they haven't really been doing anything new. So
physical media is dead to them.
Yes, especially when it comes to catalog titles. And even then, even though they acquired The Straight Story back in the day, and it's a great movie, and you could maybe get give it to Kino, give it to.
They need content, man. They got to fill up that streaming service.
But even then, give it to somebody who will give it a good remaster. I've looked into the Imprint thing, and apparently it's just the same HD transfer you can get on Disney Plus. Now, obviously, the compression and bitrate is better because it's on a disc, but it doesn't have a lot of bonus features because I think Imprint's kind of a smaller upstart, and more recent, so they don't have the resources to go out and get all of those, bonus features and booklets that stuff like Arrow did for Dune or Criterion has done for all the David Lynch films that they've done. But I got this crummy DVD of The Straight Story, and I've had it for years. I've watched it 5 or 6 times. I really want to watch this movie in HD with a really nice transfer, and it's a great film. It's in my top 3 David Lynch movies. I think it's one of his best movies, and I think it deserves an all-out release because there is some true beauty in the way it looks and sounds. It deserves much more than the DVD format that it currently has.
That is a good pick. I should have called that one. I guess I could have. I figured Lynch would show up somewhere on your list, but most of his stuff has been covered, so yeah, I should have.
Well, and I do want to say, like, when I first started getting David Lynch stuff in, like, 2016, 2017, most of his movies just were not available on disc at all. Mm-hmm. Or, sorry, in HD discs at all. Like,
yeah.
I think they had 4 or 5 out of his 10, and we're getting an Inland Empire Blu-ray. Like, I never thought that would have happened in a million years, considering the way in which it was made. But I went and saw that in the theaters. It's getting a HD Blu-ray pretty soon, and I will be all over that.
That's awesome, man. All right, my next one's a little bit of a weird one, and a little bit of a cheat. You call it a cheat. I call it an opportunity. I call it a double feature. Because my number 8 is a Richard Thorpe double feature. 2 films he did, I want to say back to back, but that's just because they're in subsequent years. They're not back to back because this dude made a bazillion movies. I was looking at his IMDb, 137 films this guy directed.
Oh my word!
137 films. Richard Thorpe. He loves the hustle. But the films I'm interested in from him are 1952's Ivanhoe and 1953's Knights of the Round Table. Very, very similar films. Ivanhoe is, of course, the more prestigious one. I think it was nominated for some things. It is a really, really good movie. Probably definitely the better of the two. But he also did Knights of the Round Table the following year. And it's very much in the same realm. They're both medieval timesy movies. And I think they have some of the similar actors in them. I enjoyed both of these. I watched these on TCM a couple years ago. And that is kind of the only way you can watch Knights of the Round Table, except for like an old DVD probably. But Ivanhoe does have a Blu-ray. Knights of the Round Table doesn't. I just kind of lumped them together because I know that these boutique labels don't usually do double features, but if you're aware, Kino Lorber does have a double feature of Eisenstein's films, 2 of Eisenstein's films, which are Battleship Potemkin and Strike. I recently found that. I do want to get that, but it's a lovely, I don't know if you've seen that. It is a slip case a double feature slipcase for Eisenstein, but both of the things that slide of it, they both have slipcases.
Oh.
So yeah, so Strike and Battleship Potemkin both have the normal sideways slipcases that Kino does, and then it has like a double feature slip cover that goes over it. It's a really cool release. I want to get that, and I am pitching the same thing for Kino to do with the Richard Thorpe medieval double feature. I think it would be great. I would like to watch those movies again. All boys need to grow up with King Arthur stories, and I would love to have those for my son and my daughter as they grow up, and I think that would be a really cool release. Anyone else? Nope, just me? Okay.
That's a great idea. I like that a lot. I don't know who Richard Thorpe is. I had heard of Ivanhoe, but just the title. I didn't really know how prolific he was, but that's great, and yeah, I think something like Kino would be great for them.
Yeah, he was a workhorse director. He's also directed like 4 Tarzan films that I would like to see released in some kind of box set, some of the later ones. But yeah, he's a crazy workhorse director.
Number 7. This is a film that has a little bit of a spotty history, a bit of a notorious history on home video, specifically in the Blu-ray years. So I would love to see a 4K release of the 1971 Best Picture film, The French Connection. William Friedkin directed, starring Gene Hackman, Roy Scheider. Mm-hmm. It is a great movie. I've been seeing some people, the last couple of years, people have been going back, revisiting this. There's like this, kind of lame notion that it's actually not that good. Bullpucky, this movie rules. Great movie. It's so 70s and grimy and gritty, and the heavy film grain. It's made with a documentarian style to it. If you're a fan of the Safdie brothers films, they are absolutely taking their cues from The French Connection. But I love this movie. When it first hit Blu-ray, it's one of the most notorious releases ever because William Friedkin decided he wanted to be George Lucas for Halloween.
Oh no.
And he decided to, it's supposed to look like this, like, kind of beat up, like you're like a on the run and gun, like, documentary style camera. That's sort of the mentality that it was made with.
Yeah.
But
did he stabilize it?
No, he like discolored it and added like new coloring like over it, and like added like fake scratches onto the film grain, and like notoriously shamed. And actually, the cinematographer came out and said that is not the film I shot. Like,
Ooh.
so he said, "Nuh-uh." And then they actually put out another release. They actually had to put out another release. And this is when 20th Century Fox tried doing their own, like, their own prestige line. It was the filmmaker's signature series for The French Connection. I don't like this cover. I don't it's got William Friedkin's signature on it.
Guys,
which is,
we need minimalism. That's what screams sophisticated, is minimalism. Just put his face and slap some text on there.
It's got William Friedkin's signature on it, which is hilarious, considering William Friedkin was responsible for the previous release. But what's important about this is that it is the movie this is the HD Blu-ray release that has the cinematographer's seal of approval. Okay. As well as Friedkin's. Well, Friedkin has said,
cinematographer should have signed that one.
That's what I mean. That's why it's hilarious that it is what it is. And so, but William Friedkin said, like, hey, I'm not discounting the version I shot. I just thought the Blu-ray would be kind of a fun way to try to experiment with it, kind of try to make it new or whatever, which is why I think for a 4K release of The French Connection, it might be cool to give people the option to watch both versions of it in one format.
Yeah,
maybe give it a little bit of I'll make a comic book comparison here. The Killing Joke, when it was initially released, had more psychedelic colors, and years later, the artist Brian Bolland, I don't know which way it's pronounced. He actually went in and recolored it with a much more muted, his own colors, and there was much debate as to which is the preferred coloring, whether you like the more like colorful psychedelic colors or you prefer Boland's recoloring. Either way, Boland's recoloring is the only readily available way to get it, and it would be kind of nice if they just released an edition of The Killing Joke, because it's a short story that has both versions available. It would be really cool if you could, because I do kind of want to watch the George Lucasified French Connection William Friedkin special edition.
No, I totally get the temptation to do that as an artist myself. I'm always wanting to go back and make my work better, and as a writer, I'm sure you have the same thing. But you just gotta make both versions available. That's the George Lucas problem. Like, fine,
yes,
go. You want to make the changes, but don't erase history. Like, just make them all available.
And I should be said, maybe I should have put Amadeus in this, because you cannot get the theatrical cut of Amadeus anywhere. It's just the director's cut, which isn't it's a home video cut.
Oh no!
But for me, I haven't seen Amadeus. Sorry, everybody, because I want to watch the theatrical cut first, and until that's available, I'm not watching the director's cut. But I have seen The French Connection, and both versions are available. I would just like to have them kind of together, sort of what like Vinegar Syndrome has done with Flesh for Frankenstein, where they have the 4K version and they also have a 3D version, and you can watch both of them in one nice collection.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. My number 7, coming a little bit forward in time, we are jumping up to 1960 with a film that I recently just checked out, and, well, it's been a while, but I really enjoyed it. It is George Powell's The Time Machine. Have you seen this?
I have not.
George Powell's The Time Machine is great. I finally watched it pretty recently. George Powell, other notable works, The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm, which just got a release, and that would definitely be on this list if that hadn't happened, because that would have been like number 1. I really wanted that, and a dream came true. So hey, there's hope that some of these may actually happen. because there was no one thought that was going to happen. That's been in limbo for years. And then he also directed Tom Thumb, which is another fairy tale movie with some lovely acrobatics by the great Russ Tamblyn. So check it out for that. But yeah, that could have been on my list too. That didn't end up. Maybe that'll be an honorable mentions. Not a great film, but Russ Tamblyn's cool. Anyway, George Pal directed The Time Machine in 1960. It is obviously an adaptation of the famous H.G. Wells novel, and it's a very faithful adaptation, I think, from what I remember of reading the book. And that's one of my favorite books of his. I think War of the Worlds is probably my favorite H.G. Wells book. But no, this movie is great. I think it adds some stuff in the middle where he goes to like a different time before he's way in the future, and it's like crazy bananas kind of fantasy world where it's very similar to Logan's Run. I think I watched this pretty close to Logan's Run, and like the outfits they're wearing in the future are very similar, but obviously there's monster mole men, and it's great. I thought it was a really fun movie. I would like to own it. There's like a very, very not exciting release of this one with it's just like a black cover with like a picture of the time machine. It's very ugly and very unfortunate, and I would love, I think Indicator. I think this would fit perfectly with Indicator, which is a UK company, but they do a lot of region-free stuff. All of my Sinbads and my Harryhausens are Indicator, and I just got another one that's also region-free. I think Indicator would be great for this, or Arrow. I mean, they do a lot of sci-fi horror stuff too, but yeah, those two I think would be great for this. And this is one that I really hope gets a cool release someday, because I mean, in all likelihood, these are the ones that are more likely to get a release, or like the more mainstream, like sci-fi action kind of movies. I could totally see this happening. I don't know if it's like a rights issue, like it's caught up in that, because this is I think this is probably the most notable version of this story. I think there might be one from like, is it 90s or something?
2002.
2002. Okay, yeah, that's another big one. But I think I haven't seen that one, so I won't say anything. But this one's great, and I really wish we could get a nice fancy release of this one. I think it should happen. I try to keep these pretty realistic, as you can see.
Yeah, no, I know, because it's interesting, because like considering something like War of the Worlds, has that movie is kind of considered like a bit of a classic, and I just think like if you're gonna put out something like that in like kind of like because that has gotten a bit of a pretty consistent history on home video, I just think you'd expect at least one of the smaller labels to pick up other H.G. Wells films of the 50s and 60s time. It's a little strange that it hasn't been picked up.
Yeah, and they're, like I said, one of the Harryhausen films in, I think, the second box set, the orange one up there, is an H.G. Wells adaptation, The Man in the Moon, which I talked about last year when we did Adventure Through November. But I have that one, and I have War of the Worlds from Criterion, and then I have the other one from Criterion that wasn't an adaptation but was just written by Wells.
Things to Come, right?
Things to Come, that's what it's called, yes. So there are H.G. Wells adaptations, but this one needs, and this is a big one. I know it's a little bit later. It's 60s, so it's not as classic as War of the Worlds, but I thought it was very fun and pretty good movie. So make it happen, as if Indicator and Arrow are watching this video.
This is a movie that is one of the greatest American films ever made.
Oh, wow. Here, let me settle in for this one.
Yeah, from one of the greatest American filmmakers who has ever lived. It is
Richard
George
Thorpe.
It is George Lucas's 1973 film American Graffiti.
Hey, yes, you recently had a very passionate love affair with this film.
I love this movie, and so do a lot of your favorite filmmakers. Also love this, and I this is gonna make me sound very pompous or whatever, and because like, look, I only just recently watched this movie, and it was sort of like, where have you been my whole life? Because look, I grew up in the Star Wars prequel era. I grew up loving Star Wars. I know American Graffiti as a trivia question. It's what's the movie George Lucas did right before Star Wars? What is the movie that basically was enough of a hit to, let a studio take a risk on Star Wars? Like, you think of American Graffiti as it was this cool movie, but then he made Star Wars. You know what I mean? No, like this absolutely deserves its Best Picture nomination. It absolutely deserves its reputation as, and there's a reason why it is the film that launched 1,000 careers. I mean, the cast is amazing. Richard Dreyfuss, Harrison Ford is in there in a very small role. Just a great cast all around. But it is sort of like when I had this like bizarre experience where I'm like, wait a minute. George Lucas like invented my favorite film genre, which is like the coming of age hangout comedy.
That's what
like
I'm saying, man, it's your type of movie.
I love Dazed and Confused, and I still do. It's just a remake of American Graffiti. It's a really good remake of American Graffiti.
Hot take.
Look, I love Richard Linklater more than I love most people, and I've never even met the guy. But Dazed and Confused is a remake. I mean, and look, if you like The Mandalorian and you think it's adorable when he gives little Grogu the little top of the little gear shift, I'm just saying that's taken from a George Lucas movie not called Star Wars, It is not just a reference, man. It's just straight up an emotional beat taken from another George Lucas movie that may or may not be called American Graffiti. And yeah, that is like obviously an homage. I'm not saying they just randomly took that. They were, of course, looking at Lucas specifically. But the point is, American Graffiti has a Blu-ray release. It is a Universal movie. However, that is a little bit of a not great release. It's certainly dated. It has a lot of edge enhancement and DNR that was used on it, creating a kind of a very kind of bright, artificial, not very authentically filmic look. And even though I'm not a fan of the way Lucas has the 5 other films he's directed, all of which are science fiction films, the way in which he has digitally gone in and messed stuff around. THX 1138, that's still even though he digitally messed stuff up and changed the backgrounds and all that stuff, it's still a very good looking Blu-ray. And it sounds incredible. And it has a ton of bonus features. I don't know. I'm curious about the rights to American Graffiti because it seems like the one that Lucas kind of just let go away. But I don't doubt that he's very passionate and it's very personal for him. But I think it is absolutely in need of a nice 4K restoration, something that's very authentic to its source. And, I mean, it's the film that launched 1,000 careers. You will have no problem getting people to come in and do retrospectives, have essays written about this thing. It created a genre. It's a fantastic, amazing, historically important film, and I think it maybe deserves more because the Universal Blu-ray is fine, but it's very dated and it does not have a lot of bonus features. Anyways, that's my number 6.
Cool. That is a great pick. My number 6, almost skipped my number 6. Number 6 is a very recent film, jumping all the way to 2020. I don't think you've seen this. Don't even know if you've heard of this. This is a Ben Zeitlin. Is that how you say his name? A Ben Zeitlin film, Beasts of the Southern Wild. That's not the film. That's the director I'm talking about. But this is the film the next film he made, which was a long time coming. It took him a long time to get this out. But it did come out in 2020. I'm assuming right before all the madness. This is Wendy.
I saw the preview for that in late 2019.
Yeah, Wendy. You heard of it? It is a Peter Pan adaptation. Yes, it is another Peter Pan adaptation, but it is a good one. I promise. It is a great movie. I watched it. I think it was on HBO Max for a little bit. I don't think I saw it the year it came out. Like I said, I just saw it, I think last year. I was a little behind, but it's great. It's a strange adaptation. I don't know if it'll be for all the Peter Pan fans out there, but it ain't Pan. That's for sure.
Thank God.
But no, this is a actual modern adaptation, not just using Nirvana songs in a weird fantasy land with Hugh Jackman. It takes place now, in modern times. It's in this very tiny little southern town, single mother trying to take care of 2 sons and a daughter, and she's running this isn't important. I don't know why I'm saying this, but she's running she's a cook in a little diner, out in the country, and her kids. So she's a working mom. It's important. She's a working mom, single mom, and so the kids are running around and having adventures, and they get called away by this a little Peter Pan boy, but it's like he's just a crazy boy, like on a train, and they get on the train and they go away to him. But there is fantastic elements in it. It's not all realistic. It's definitely a fantasy film. It gets very fantastical later and pretty dark and emotional. It was a kind of an emotional roller coaster for me because I knew nothing about it, and so I just knew it was the Peter Pan adaptation. I go in and I'm like, oh, this is like more realistic, modern take, and then it hits you with some fantasy, and then it hits you with some darkness. I won't say too much about it because that's kind of the point, is seeing how the twists and turns and how it's different than the original. But it was really good, and I liked it, and it might be it's definitely one of my favorite films from 2020, but I did not see hardly anything in 2020. I think I maybe saw like 5 new movies because it was so all over the place.
Slim pickings.
Yeah. But Wendy, I really liked. Let me know in the comments if you also enjoyed this movie, because I feel like I'm the only one who, first of all, saw it, and second of all, liked it, because I know a lot of people that saw it didn't like it. It wasn't for everybody. So, but I'm very in the lead. There's not even a Blu-ray release for it.
Whoa, really?
There's not at all. Like, I can't find it anywhere, not even like in overseas or anything. It's just like everyone forgot about this movie, so I can't watch it at all. It's not on HBO Max anymore, so I'm just out of luck. And I like to collect Peter Pan. I have a pretty big Peter Pan collection, especially on film. So I really want to own this. So hopefully I could actually see this being a Cohen Media Group release. They release a lot of like modern movies. They have a couple other like modern fairy tale type things that I wish I could remember right now, because I just found out about one that I wanted to check out. But yeah, totally, I could see Cohen releasing this, and I wish they would, if they could get the rights to it. I don't know who actually made this film. I don't think it's a Warner film. I think HBO Max just got it because it was on the HBO side. But anyway, I've talked way too much about this for a movie that I don't want to spoil anything about and haven't said anything. So let's move along to your number 5.
Yeah, number 5. This is going to be a movie I don't even think... This is probably the movie on this list that no one's heard of. It is a 1965 Polish film that is 3 hours long called The Saragos Manuscript. It's a very interesting movie. It is very much a film divided into 2 halves, and the second half is this exercise in absurdism, where almost like it is stories within stories within stories within stories that almost sort of break down the concept of storytelling to a science. But the first half is more of like a Ingmar Bergman inspired wartime supernatural maybe trip about desire and death, and it's interesting. Then it becomes a very... I actually much prefer the second half to the first half, but it is a very interesting movie, very well made, and after watching it, you will go on a trip with it. And I had a very, very long conversation with my brother after watching it. I would absolutely see a Cohen Media Group, like you said, or alternately Olive Films, maybe an Olive signature release on this one. I think they could do it justice. This was actually a film that was really discovered for North American audiences, you could even say it was discovered by Francis Ford Coppola and Martin Scorsese. They just went over to Poland and started looking for good movies to bring to America. And this was one of the movies they found, and it's really cool. I can absolutely see films like how The Seventh Seal, the Ingmar Bergman film, inspired something like this, but 1965's The Saragos Manuscript.
I am adding it to my watch list right now. That sounds very interesting. My number 5 is also a black and white, little-known film from a foreign director from 1964. Very close how that lined up. But I had to get this on here. Connor knows how many Pasolini films I've been watching lately. This is Pasolini's not as popular film and not as Pasolini of a film, but it is The Gospel According to St. Matthew. from 1964. Obviously, Pasolini, Salo, Teorema, Trilogy of Life, Mama Roma. He's very prolific, very well known in the Criterion community, and I've been watching his films because they just released a bunch of them on the Criterion channel. And this one has no Region A release. It does have a Eureka release, always with the Eureka, always releasing Region B stuff that we can't watch. You guys over in the UK have it good. No, we have stuff that you don't have to. It's fair. But yeah, I really like this movie a lot. This is obviously the Gospel according to St. Matthew. It's an adaptation of the Gospel, specifically Matthew's Gospel, and I found it really interesting and different than a lot of the not as good Gospel movies that we have been getting, especially recently. Now that we don't have Cecil B. DeMille or any of those guys making these movies anymore. This was really cool, very dark. I liked how realistic's a weird word, but Italian neorealism is totally where he lives, and that's his thing. He casts non-actors. He has them just kind of living in normal grungy life, which fits in perfectly with this movie. That's what he was doing. He was literally a homeless guy wandering around talking to very poor, oppressed people, and it fits in perfectly here. This does seem to be the most tame of his films, even so. I feel like he felt like he was dealing with, sacred text here, so he didn't go obviously as far. All of the dialogue is taken straight from the scriptures. It's all word for word, verbatim. But I like the stuff that he includes and focuses on that other adaptations don't. How horrific would it be if literally every child under 2 was just ripped out of their house one night and murdered right in front of their families? That would be horrifying, and that scene is terrifying. It's this really dark scene where all of the men are just standing at the top of the mountain, and they're showing all this expression on their face, about how the horrible thing that they're about to have to do, they're not excited about it, and then they just rush this village, and it just shows this crazy throwing people around, and babies getting just thrown down a mountain out of their mother's arms and stuff. I'm sure it was a doll, don't worry. But it doesn't feel like that when you're watching it, because it's so graphic and gets you right in there, and then it just weaves into another scene. It's very vignette obviously, because it's based on the Gospel. But I watched this on Easter. I was watching a couple different adaptations of that story on Easter this year, and that would be a nice one to pop in every couple of years on Easter, I think, because Pasolini just does such a great job with it, and I really enjoyed it. So don't know if that's ever going to get released. It would have to be through Criterion, I guess, here in the States. I don't know if anyone else is picking up Pier Paolo Pasolini movies, but they have his trilogy, they have Salo, they have Teorema, and they used to have Mama Roma, but I don't think that is in print anymore. It doesn't have a Blu-ray, but hey, this could happen. Hopefully someday it'll get released. That's my number 5.
Yes, and I will carry on, for my top 5, I kind of have, I know exactly what labels these titles would be good for. You said Gospel According to St. Matthew would be a great Criterion pick. My go-to, I would like this to be a Criterion movie, is going to be Orson Welles' film from 1947, starring himself and Rita Hayworth, The Lady from Shanghai. Like a lot of Orson Welles movies, this movie, if you just look into the history of it, it is a heart-aching tragedy. Long story short, he made a 2.5-hour long film that was largely shot on location and was this really cerebral film noir. He delivered it to the financiers. They said, "Why did you dye Rita Hayworth's hair blonde and cut it short?" And so that made them angry. And they said, "You shot this on location?" "What? No, this isn't a documentary. This is a film. You shoot it on sets." And then, of course, 4 years later, John Huston made The African Queen. And then shooting on location was cool. But once Orson Welles delivered his 2.5-hour version of The Lady from Shanghai to the studio, they cut it down to 90 minutes and then said, "That's the movie." And then Orson Welles said, "I want my name taken off as director." So it does not have a director's credit. very similar thing that happened to a lot of Orson Welles' movies, including most notably The Magnificent Ambersons. Here's the difference between The Magnificent Ambersons and The Lady from Shanghai. When you're watching The Magnificent Ambersons, you can tell what's missing, and your heart aches, and you can tell what's a reshoot very, very blatantly. It's still a good movie in spite of all of that, and I would argue still a great movie in spite of all that. I did not know that this movie, The Lady from Shanghai, was supposed to be 2.5 hours. It's a fantastic movie, even in its compromised state.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so I could have put, I would love a 4K release of The Magnificent Ambersons. That's the original cut. And, but that's never going to happen. Like, you know what I mean? I've made my peace that we're never going to find the full version of Magnificent Ambersons. We're probably never going to find the full version of Lady from Shanghai. Those are probably just gone. But Lady from Shanghai, the only way to get that is Mill Creek release. Mill Creek has an illustrious career of making cheap home media. And so they gave us The Lady from Shanghai. It's an HD transfer. I can say it's an HD transfer. It has... it's not good, but you know what? It's HD though, and it has no bonus features to speak of. It's got a scene selection. That's cool, So, but The Lady from Shanghai is great. It has one of the most iconic film noir endings. It absolutely deserves a deep dive, academic treatment. Criterion has access to a lot of Orson Welles films, including Magnificent Ambersons, recently Citizen Kane, Othello, Chimes at Midnight, Immortal Story, and I think The Lady from Shanghai deserves to be among those Orson Welles titles. So that's my number 4, The Lady from Shanghai.
That is awesome. I didn't even know about that. I'm sorry. That's very sad. Some of these aren't as realistic, so you could have thrown it in there. It would have been all right. All right, my number 4 is actually the one that I think you'll have to pick up in some form eventually, because it is a Best Picture winner from 1956 by Michael Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
It is Around the World in 80 Days. I really enjoyed this movie. What a fun adventure film that I think actually I watched some of this with my son, I think. The Western, where it just breaks out into like a Western brawl in the middle of the hotel. If I'm thinking about it, I might be getting confused with The Great Race. I may have watched The Great Race with him, which is a very similar type of film where you're just globe-trotting and doing a lot of different scenes. But no, I really enjoyed this movie. I know you weren't crazy about this film. I also watched this film like while I was working one day. Like that's how I was doing TCM films for a while. I was watching them on Hulu and just kind of like having them on secondary. So maybe it was more entertaining that way than you watching it like just doing nothing but watching it. But I really enjoyed this movie. I think it is fun. It's actually the same director as Logan's Run.
Oh, okay.
Michael Anderson, which is strange. But I think this would, where I thought that would be a better fit for Arrow, I think this would be a much better fit for Kino. I could see them doing a nice transfer of this, but with not very many bonus features. I would love bonus features on this because this is it was a very ambitious, crazy film at the time. But yeah, I love this. And the score of it is one of my favorite scores. The score is so good. Around the World in 80 Days. That's my number 4. Why don't you want that?
Oh, well, no, I do. And I'll tell you, actually, the DVD I have is a Warner Archive collection release. Mm-hmm. And Warner Archive is their boutique arm. They're the ones that put out The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm.
That's right. That's correct. So
come on, guys. What are you waiting for? Put out a Blu-ray.
It's a Best Picture winner, guys. Come on.
And this DVD came out in 2018. Come on.
What?
Come on.
Why would you release a DVD in 2018 only? I don't know. You gotta do a Blu-ray, guys. Come on, Warner. No, Warner
At
Archive
least
is a good one. We haven't been talking about them, but yeah, this is a good. Obviously, this could be perfect for them. But didn't they just have a deal with Kino Lorber, Warner?
I think that might have been Paramount.
Oh, you're right. Paramount. I was gonna say, hey, maybe it could happen, but no. We'll just have to keep waiting for Warner Archive to stop dragging their feet and put this out there because, well, you already have a DVD copy, so at least it's in your collection. But yeah, I would love to see a Blu-ray release of this.
Yeah, no, I would love to get a Blu-ray so that it's the one DVD on the shelf, and it sticks up, and I don't like that. Number 3, speaking of DVD onlys, is we can call this Connor Dumps on Disney Part 2.
With
Disney.
The subtitle First World Problems.
Yes, yeah. This is like the epitome of semantic, like. Except it's not. This one more than any of the other ones, even though it's my number 3. All right.
Hey, we're all collectors here. No shame.
Yeah.
No shame.
So Disney owns Touchstone Pictures. All right.
They do.
Disney is responsible for this. Okay.
Okay.
Touchstone Pictures is responsible for my all-time favorite comedy. It is a comedy that is enjoyed by scores of Gen Xers and Boomers alike, millennials, kind of like myself, and maybe you grew up with this movie basically decorating. Like everybody had a VHS copy or DVD copy of this movie. It is Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss in What About Bob, the Frank Oz directed film. This is the only way to get this movie, is on DVD, all right? And not just a DVD, like Around the World in 80 Days. That DVD was pressed in 2018, okay? That thing fills my TV. This is a letterbox DVD, okay? Now, last year, when I was watching through all of my favorites, movies that I had called favorites for years, I'm like, I should rewatch this to see if this is still my favorite. I popped this in, and on my TV, it is like, here's my TV, here's the movie. It is
Oh no, it's like the beginning of Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. It was like looking through a letterbox. Yeah, and it is like it's all compressed and blotchy. It looks like a VHS transfer. It's so ugly. Luckily, the movie's hilarious. I was laughing my butt off the entire time, but I had to adjust to like kind of leaning in to look at this movie playing on my TV. And I have a decent sized TV. Like, God help you if I guess you can maybe try to get this on HD through some streaming form, but God help me. Please, somebody acquire the Touchstone catalog. Maybe you can buy it from Disney. I think What About Bob would have a perfect home in the Shout Factory, Shout Select line. I think that sort of line is made specifically for these kinds of films that were popular, or when they came out, or they were made by notable filmmakers. Maybe they are not as popular anymore, or they're lesser known films from notable filmmakers. I know like Matinee and Wild at Heart are on the Shout Select line, as well as Someone to Watch Over Me, the Ridley Scott film. This is a Frank Oz picture. Frank Oz is not like a huge filmmaker, but he's a very well-respected man in the industry in terms of, the dude is the puppeteer and voice of Yoda, right? And it was kind of second to Jim Henson in making like the Muppets who they are, right? And he directed this, and one of the best Bill Murray performances, very different for him, one of the funniest performances ever from Richard Dreyfuss. And I know that they hated each other on set. It transfers beautifully here. You know me, I hate screwball comedies. I hate it where it's one guy ruining another person's life. Somehow this is the exception. I want this guy's life to be ruined, and it does. And it's so satisfying, and it's so funny, and I really like this movie. And I want to be able to just pop a disc into my player and watch it in a way that at least is not ugly. You know what I mean? It's not like the world's best looking movie, but it doesn't have to look ugly. Anyways, that's my number 3. What about Bob?
Wow.
What about your number 3?
What about my number 3? My number 3 is not a comedy. It is going back to the realm of science fiction here. This is one of my favorite movies. It's 1951's The Day the Earth Stood Still. why has this not been picked up by Arrow or Indicator or somebody? Like, this film is a classic. I love this movie. This was a classic movie that I watched before I even got into classic movies. Like, I really, really like this movie before I even watched a lot of black and white films. Robert Wise, I mean, the guy's Sound of Music, West Side Story, just list of classic movies that he's made. And I really like The Day There's Themselves, kind of like quintessential sci-fi movie. Definitely paved the way for a lot of that 50s and 60s era stuff. And I wish that Arrow would put out like a big, beautiful deluxe box Blu-ray of it. There is like a standard Blu-ray that's just like Gort's face. Not a great Blu-ray, but
it's not.
You have it?
No, I don't. I've seen it, and I'm like, I don't want to buy that. I'll wait till they put out a
That's what I'm saying. That's what this video was born from. I do this all the time. That's why this list was so easy for me. I actually have like over 10 honorable mentions because I have this problem all the time. I'm like, I really want to buy that movie. I'm looking at it on eBay, and I'm just like, I don't want to own that great movie in that way. I don't know. Planet of the Apes, lots of cool releases. 2001, lots of cool releases. I know those are later, but Day There's Still short end of the stick. I don't know if it's a rights thing. I don't know if they just don't think it'll sell. There was a remake, and I think that's when that Blu-ray came out, obviously, or like that. I guess
it has to have, because it's like it's designed to look like the remake.
Yeah, it does not. That cover does not make me want to watch it like it's the original, but. Hopefully someday someone will pick this up and I can get a really cool release of it because, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. I probably will just break down and buy it soon because I want to show this one to my son pretty early. It's a pretty family-friendly movie. But that is my number 3.
I mean, geez Louise, that's like, you could say, Knights of the Round Table, it might be by the guy who made Ivanhoe, but, not a lot of that guy's movies.
Totally.
Like, this is like, that's an iconic classic. Like, that is a Planet of the Apes tier,
exactly,
like classic sci-fi. Unbelievable. Wow. Okay. you got me upset.
I know. I'm bringing out the big guns here. Top three.
No, I'm bringing out the big guns too, but they're a different kind of gun. These might be super soakers to some people. I don't mean to kill anybody's vibe here by putting a wet blanket on. What you wanted to see me, talk about what I want to see. I'm probably going to lose a lot of respect from people because I love these top 2 films. I love them. Not a lot of people do. These are very much not even a guilty pleasure. I think these are great films. Not a lot of people agree with me, and that's okay. I think the Arrow like deluxe edition, limited special edition thing that they do for stuff like Legend.
Yes.
This was made for my number 2. The 2008 film from the Wachowskis, Speed Racer.
Wow. I can see that getting a boutique release. Speed Racer definitely has like a cult following these days. I don't think you're alone in that. I've heard a lot of people say that. Not a lot. I've heard a decent sized amount of people say that.
Well, no, it has more of a cult following than my number 1.
Wow. I
would actually defend my number 1 as a great film, and most of the cult fan of my number 1, I like it ironically. And so we'll get to that. I want to say Speed Racer is my number 2.
Yeah, Speed Racer.
Speed Racer, make no mistake, is a great film. And I say that completely straight-faced. I think it's wonderful. It is doing its own thing, committing to it wholeheartedly. And I think it's the best film that the Wachowskis have made. Come at me, Matrix fans.
And the stream shuts down. Good thing we're not streaming this live because we would have just lost everyone.
Rage quit. He's just a troll. He's just a contrarian. I know. But I mean it sincerely. Speed Racer got a Blu-ray in 2008 that has since gone out of print. It's quite expensive to get it, especially with a slipcover. But it was not a very good Blu-ray because it was an early Blu-ray. It was a bomb. Like at the box office, this movie bombed hard. So I think they probably gave it a BD25 disc as opposed to a BD50 disc in terms of the amount of information it could hold. And the visual nature of Speed Racer is very complicated. There's a lot of visual effects, a lot of just detail all over the place. And the original release of Speed Racer on Blu-ray was kind of marred by compression. And when I was streaming this movie when I was finally watching it, the ending when Speed Racer is crossing that finish line, the insane amount of colors and movement that is happening on the screen, the compression was causing a lag. Like the amount of detail that was on screen was causing a lag for me. Like that's how busy the ending of this movie is, and just how kind of busy the visual nature of this movie is in general. But I think you give this a 4K. I think because it has a pretty committed cult following, like you were alluding to, DJ, I think you give this to Arrow and they put out like a limited edition deluxe set. I am buying this day one. I am pre-ordering this. I am making sure I have this on the shelf. That line was made for something like Speed Racer. So that's my number 2.
No, that's a great one. I would never have thought of that. I saw, I don't know if I've ever seen the full thing, but we had that on DVD when I was younger, and I know I saw bits and pieces of it, but I don't know. I need to go back to it because you were giving it a glowing recommendation, and I think it's PG, right? Like I could watch that with my kids when they're about 10 or 11, right?
Yeah, it is made for kids, right? And that's what I like about it, is that it is creating its own reality. It is making up its own rules and commits to them. And a lot of movies try to do that and fail hard, and I feel, and I understand why a lot of people felt that Speed Racer did that. I feel like it absolutely succeeds in what it is trying to do, and I respect it a lot, even if visually some of it looks kind of dated. It's committing to itself in a way where I can still buy into the reality of the world, even if a lot of it hasn't. It's very much 2008.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times those boundary pushing movies are the ones that get hit the hardest. The ones that we learn the most from actually don't hold up well, which is unfortunate. But I'll have to check it out. You've piqued my interest. I'm going to go in probably the most opposite direction you possibly could from Speed Racer for my number 2. 1926, directed by Victor Sjöström, who you might know. He also directed The Phantom Carriage. The Scarlet Letter. My goodness, how is this film not got a...
I'm confused what you're talking about. There was a bunch of race car driving in that movie. What do you mean?
Well, aside from that, it's very different. No, why have we not shown some love to this film? TCM's showing love to it. It's playing on TCM. That's where I watched it. And it's incredible. It's such a good adaptation. So heartfelt and emotional. I don't know how accurate of an adaptation it is because I have not read that book. We were supposed to read that book in together as a class in high school, and my English teacher was terrible, and we just kind of fell off and read a couple chapters and never finished. But yeah, it's just a great silent movie. Victor Sjöström, he's awesome. I've only seen 2 of his films. I also seen The Phantom Carriage, one of my favorite movies. So I could absolutely see Criterion doing this if they could secure the rights to it, because they did do Phantom Carriage. I would love it. I could also see, I'm going to pull out another name that we haven't even talked about tonight, Flicker Alley. Flicker Alley does a lot of silent films. I have their Lost World Blu-ray, which is excellent. I have their Georges Méliès's Fairy Tales in Color Blu-ray, which is fantastic. They do some really good stuff. They don't do pretty releases, there's no slipcovers or box art or anything. It's just a standard clear case, kind of like Criterion. But man, the effort they put into putting bonus features and multiple audio tracks and all that stuff they did for Georges Méliès do for The Scarlet Letter, because it is fantastic. 4.5 stars, I think I gave it on Letterboxd. I've only seen it once. It is a really, really good movie, and there is nothing. I don't even think there's a DVD.
Wow. Whoa, really?
It's
interesting.
So sad. Kino has a Scarlet Letter, but it's the 90s one or something. I don't want to see that. Give me the 26 German one.
And look.
It's so good. Check it out.
Speed Racer has a Scarlet M on the front of his car. No, I had to get that out there. So, no, but it's interesting that you say it has nothing, because you would think there would be some kind of effort, because The Scarlet Letter is such like a landmark text in terms of being like a novel, and you think like adaptations of that would maybe want to stay in print. Like I think every version of Little Women you can get your hands on in some physical capacity. I want to say that 90s movie is so notoriously bad, you would think they would maybe look back to other adaptations to maybe try to keep that in terms of relevant, because I mean, like you say, Criterion, like that, or Flickr Alley, I don't know. Like Criterion absolutely is like purchased mostly by libraries a lot to try to just have that history and have that, like, you don't, the library doesn't want to have the 1995 Scarlet Letter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's a good call for your number 2.
Well, it's a very important film too. Like I think, is it Lillian Gish? She eventually, who plays Hester Prynne, she eventually, if I'm remembering when I watched it on TCM, little blurb they said at the beginning, she eventually became like a big Hollywood actress. And that was kind of one of her first films. Oh, she's in The Night of the Hunter.
Oh, okay.
Which is a Charles Laughton film. Yeah, so I don't know. I think there's a lot of reasons that this film needs to be preserved, and I hope that Criterion gets on that because I really enjoyed it. That's my number 2. Here we go. Hot Take Central. What is your number 1? Gotta have it. If nothing else on this list could happen, this is the one that you want to happen the most.
I'm not kidding when I say this.
You gotta keep it straight.
Paul Verhoeven's 1995 film Showgirls.
No, I know that he's being serious, guys.
Look, what is Showgirls? Showgirls is American Psycho meets Mulholland Drive. Except it was made before all of those. In fact, you can see Showgirls in not just Mulholland Drive and American Psycho, but also Black Swan, Neon Demon, other, and many other, film school favorites, right? Your film bro favorites. But look, I get it. I get why people don't like Showgirls. It's a weird movie. If you're looking at it like a normal movie, it's not even trying to be that, though. And I know that, like, Paul Verhoeven.
I don't know why this is the one of his films that people do that with. I haven't seen it. I'm only going off of you and other people I've heard talk about it. But it seems like people want it to be a real movie for some reason.
Yeah, and I know Paul Verhoeven does consider it to be a bit of a disappointment, like, oh, I failed at what I was trying to accomplish. I don't care what he was trying to accomplish. What he did accomplish is something I think pretty awesome. It is a movie that's kind of a contradiction, but it is it's the kind of movie that should bother me and annoy me, but it doesn't. It's nutty. It's weird. It's an NC-17 movie with just tons of nudity, but it is like, look, if you're wanting to see some nudity, you're gonna get it, and you're gonna be numb to it. Like, you're like, oh, there's boobs everywhere. Okay, they're just boobs at this point.
It's not gonna give you you're not gonna get any satisfaction out of it. It's just gonna put you in a weird, awkward mood.
It's not erotic
That's the point,
at all,
though, right? It's supposed to make you feel gross. Like, it's supposed to expose the industry, right? And like,
it is. Yeah, it's like, I don't even want to call it like a satire, because I feel like that sets up the wrong tone you might be in for. It is, if you have any desire to find success in an industry that you need to claw your way to the top, which is pretty much any industry, it holds up a mirror to the kind of person you need to be in order to be successful in it, and it exposes, I think, the kind of people that are in that industry, but they are the people that were made that way by the industry. And it is a towering style piece of excess and artifice and a celebration of all the things it hates in order to show you why this thing is alluring to people, and the things that are glamorous and appealing to you, the lights, the glitz, the glamour, the makeup, all the costumes, all of that. By the midpoint, it is this nightmarish, and it's dizzying, and it makes you just want to throw up. I think it is kind of amazing, honestly. The first act is not very good. I have a whole theory as to why a first act is important, but anyways, I have a whole thing called the first act test This obviously fails the first act test, and I would say the reason why it is so hated is because it does fail the first act test. However, it has a horrible main character. Nobody is likable in this movie, but I think that is saying something about ambition. Anyways, I think Showgirls, it only has like a Blu-ray release from 2010 that was just capitalizing on its then, I think, peak reputation as the so bad it's good curiosity. It's like this 15th anniversary. The cover's horrible. It has like just kind of, it's got bonus features that are like a commentary by a guy who, you know, loves it ironically. And, you know, so if you love this movie ironically, that Blu-ray is for you. Vinegar Syndrome, you guys do wonderful work on trash movies. Give me some Showgirls on 4K now. I need this movie. Because the only way you can get this to like stream it anyways is it's free with ads on like Tubi. You can't rent this on like Vudu or Amazon. You can't buy it digitally. You have to watch it free with ads. And I don't like that. So anyways, Showgirls, a magnificent film of trash. But it is about the concept of trash human beings and ambition. And I love how unsubtle it is, how garish it is. It is about Las Vegas, but really it could be about anything, specifically movies, but like it could be about anything. Yeah, I'll put it this way. I know I've been talking about this for too long as it is. You know how in The Shape of Water, when the amphibian man goes in that wonderful scene where the amphibian man is in the theater and you see him looking at the screen, right? And he's maybe like moving with the screen and you're like, oh, he's connecting with art, right?
That was you?
In Showgirls. No.
I
In
thought you were
Showgirls.
going to say that was you as you were watching it. You were just connecting with it.
Yeah, I'm watching it and, you know, with Nomi. But in Showgirls, that scene is her in the middle of a live performance with people sitting down watching this exotic show, and she is doing the dance moves in the audience, and there is no screen to separate. That is Showgirls. That's what it is. It is that's the best way to describe it. Anyways, that's Showgirls. That's my number one. I need this to have a boutique treatment, and I'm shocked, honestly, it does not. At least in terms of like the curiosity. If Howard the Duck is one of the best 4K discs I've ever seen, and that's just like a novelty movie, you know what I'm saying? Like, give me Showgirls.
Give it to him. That's what he wants. Thank you for giving this video so many more comments than it otherwise would have had with your last two picks. Can you guess my number one? I think you could. I don't think you're going to think of it, but I think if you really thought about it, you could.
See, when I'm thinking of you, I'm just thinking of box sets. You know what I mean?
That's what happened. That's why I had to make a whole nother video, because the stupid box sets took over.
I'm thinking of a TV show box set, but you know, I don't want to guess that because it could possibly show up on that. So I don't know.
This is one film.
Tell me.
This is one very recent film, more recent than Wendy. We're going past 2020, and there's no release. Not even any kind of release, because it's a streamer. It's Tick, Tick, Boom. Oh my gosh, why? I had like a revelation like 2 weeks ago. I even texted you about it when it finally hit me. I was like, man, when is Tick, Tick, Boom coming out? It's been a while. I saw that like last winter. What's going on? It's not coming out. There is not going to be a Blu-ray because Netflix sucks. And I'm so mad that I love that movie. That's that's his first movie, right?
Yes, yeah.
First feature film, directorial debut, and he freaking nailed it. Oh my gosh, what a great movie. My favorite movie from last year. Hit me in so many places. I turned 30 literally like a month after it came out. I was 3090 was my anthem for months. I was blaring it. I know every word. I love all the music. That might be the only musical that I like every song in it. Usually it's like, you know, a handful. There's a Cheer Up Charlie if you're watching Willy Wonka. So there's a song that you're like, if you're listening to the soundtrack, you'll just skip over it. But I listened to this whole soundtrack like front to back. Love all the songs. Love the story. Andrew Garfield is probably my favorite modern working actor. Definitely one of my favorite actors of all time. I love everything I've seen him in. He commits. He's always great. Even if the movies are not the best, he's awesome. He's the best person to ever play Spider-Man, and he is fantastic in this movie. I do not know what label I could even throw at this. I just want it to come out. Netflix can release it for all I care, because I want to watch it, and I kind of don't want to be subscribed to Netflix anymore because it kind of sucks these days. Have you seen Netflix lately? It's the worst streaming service. Anyway, we've talked about that before. I really need.
But is it Paramount Plus though?
Okay. It's the worst streaming service that people actually want to use. Yeah, so I really need a Tick Tick Boom release. Please, Netflix, make it happen. I mean, I guess I could wait 4 years and hope that Criterion does it because they're doing Bong Joon-ho's Okja. But this is a very different thing. I don't see them doing this. I don't ever see this happening for Criterion. I don't see it going to Kino. I don't know who could do this. That's why I'm bummed. I can't even think of a label that could do it. I just need Netflix to put it out. Maybe if Apple puts out Coda and it sells a lot of copies, Netflix will put out Tick Tick Boom, even though we need people to stay subscribed, so maybe we won't. I don't know. Hopefully it happens, because it makes me sad that it's probably never going to happen. But that is my number one. It's a big thing that we've talked about a lot. But
yeah, I want that. I do want that physically. I'm kind of holding out that it'll get a Criterion release, because Lin-Manuel Miranda is so popular, and something like Hamilton is so important historically, whether you like that or not. Like, it is important, and him coming to film and it being Netflix, and I feel film,
I could see that.
Yeah,
but I can see it way down the line though.
No, and you're right though. Power of the Dog, they just put out the piano on 4K, so that basically means it's a power statement saying we're working with Jane Campion, so we got Power of the Dog coming. So I don't see them putting it out before any of those things. So no, you're right. It'll be a minute, which is why you should probably stay subscribed to Netflix.
I know I can watch it whenever I want because it's on there, but I want to have a physical release. I want to own at least my favorite film from every year on physical. It's my favorite 2021 film, man. And it's a huge bummer. But yeah, I had to put that at my number one. Please release it, Netflix. Please do.
Cosign.
I'm not going to co-sign on his number one. Not yet. Maybe after I see it.
Not yet. I got to see your response to some of the stuff happening in Showgirls. That movie is insane. I kind of love it.
Let's go ahead and throw out some honorable mentions. I'll let you go first because I know you said you didn't have as many as I did. So let's knock them out. What did you want that didn't quite make the list?
All right. Batman the movie from 1966. It has a very solid Blu-ray, but it's aged. It's pretty old. I think the time to really do that would have been in 2015 when they put out the TV show finally on Blu-ray. But that's not going to be on my dream Blu-ray release where it's the 3 seasons, but just with the movie. No. So that was an honorable mention. I love Batman the movie. I own all the other Batman films on 4K. It would be nice to own that 4K. I have Pig, which is my favorite 2021 film, but I have that with an asterisk because a lot of those neon releases from 2021 and this current era, they've been getting distribution like Titan, Pig, some other things, but they're not. They've been kind of notoriously underwhelming because they're not investing a lot of resources into these physical releases. I still have Pig on, physical media. I'm happy about it. I love that movie. It's my favorite film of last year. It's Portland to the core. I grew up born and raised in Portland. It gets Portland. And
you've been to so many underground fight clubs in the bottom of a restaurant you would not believe.
Look, we have a very active food scene here, okay? Number 2, kind of moving up next, this is very much in line with the Dawn of the Dead and the Straight Story. A German label called Turbine put out the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 4K, and they only printed 3,000 copies of it. So you know why. Like, I don't know if you're gonna print that few copies. Like, I don't get why you would, but that movie has a very, in terms of visual audio presentation, a very solid history on the format. But I would like to kind of get a goodie bag kind of edition that has a lot going on with it, because that is one of my favorite horror films. It's great. And the other honorable mention was 1927's Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans.
Oh, how did that not make your list?
F.W. Murnau. It has a Eureka Masters of Cinema release, a very early one. I think it actually is out of print. Like, it's a very early Masters of Cinema release. But I do own it on Blu-ray. 20th Century put out a release, and it's a good release. It has like multiple versions of the movie in terms of audio tracks that you can play with it. Oh. It has a decent amount of bonus features. So it really would just kind of be, if I want a Criterion or a Kino or a Arrow to get their hands on it, they would just be like adding booklets to it. And you know what I mean? Like,
we love booklets.
We do love booklets. That is why it is a...
we never read them, but we love them.
Oh, I read them. Arrow Academy specifically, like, they put out one for The Apartment. That is a very good, like, academic, like, deep dive into The Apartment. I feel like they could do it.
That, man. I got the 4K Kino release. I really wanted that. I'm jealous of that Arrow release that you have. No,
I just for some reason I'm holding this. I don't know. If Sunrise could have a release like this, I will absolutely buy it. I will absolutely upgrade it. But if we never see that, I am perfectly happy with the Blu-ray that Fox put out whenever they put it out.
Yeah.
And those are my honorable mentions.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right. Well, my honorable mentions are... I'll go ahead and say this one first. Some of these are very unrealistic. That's why they didn't make it on the list. But this one is very realistic, and that's why it did not make the list. French Dispatch. I know it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I know Criterion's going to do it eventually, but I want it now, sir. I love this movie. This is one of my favorite of his films, and I've actually been watching through all of his films. There's only one more I need to see, which is the Darjeeling Limited, which is not available to stream anywhere, so I'm going to pick that up in July for the Criterion sale and check that out for the first time. Sneak peek. I'm actually going to do a top 10. It's not really a top 10. It's just a ranking video of all of his films because he's only had 10. Wes Anderson. We're going to rank his films. Me and my good buddy Austin are going to do that video in a couple weeks here. He just has to watch through the films. But yeah, The French Dispatch is incredible. It's just like raw, unfiltered Wes Anderson shot straight into your veins. It's so Wes Anderson. It's really ridiculous. And I really want a nice, beautiful... They better do a digipack of it. They've been doing digipacks with all of his films lately. So
yeah, I think all of his movies, and like they get that same artist to kind of do a wraparound.
And that film has that art style at the end of it during the credits and it's so, I could see the most beautiful Criterion release for that film. So I'm excited about it, but I know it's going to happen, so didn't feel the need to put it on the list. Treasure of the Sierra Madre. How does this not have a boutique release? This just has a bare bones, crappy release. Great movie. Great movie, 1948. Humphrey Bogart. Really want that to get a good release so I can finally pick it up. I've been holding off because it doesn't have a great one. Another Flicker Alley release, King Solomon's Mines, 1937. Another classic, just at the beginning of the sound era, adventure film. So good. King Solomon's Mines, make it happen. Coda, you already mentioned. And this is where I'm going to get a little more obscure, very, very obscure. No one's heard of any of these two films that I'm about to mention. Have you heard of 1986's Lucky 7?
Nope.
Japanese film about 7 ninja kids. Oh my goodness. I want this film to be a thing so bad. It does not have a Blu-ray, of course. It doesn't even have... The DVDs of it are like so rare. I'm trying to get a DVD of this like low budget 80s Japanese action movie that was ported over to the US in the heat of like 3 ninjas and Ninja Turtles and all that stuff. They're like, hey, this is a movie about 7 ninja kids. It's not really 4 kids, but just dub it and sell it to Americans. This is Lucky 7. It is an incredible film.
That looks like three ninjas.
I'm gonna show you this while you're here. This movie is amazing. This is like Three Ninjas, except it's not Americanized. The kids get the crap kicked out of them by like full-grown adults. Like they are smashing these kids. These kids are amazing. They're doing backflips. They're all like actual ninjas, not like actors. It's such a great movie. The theme song at the beginning that opens up while they're doing their ninja stuff is awesome. It's like a noir like crime, like they get mixed up in this diamond that's being stolen, and it is like balls to the wall insanity. I watched this so many times as a kid. It was great, and it's like burned into my memory, and I really want a cool release of it. I'm gonna have to track down a DVD on eBay before you get here, because I really want to show you this movie. It's on YouTube, but it's like not a great one. I gotta find a DVD of it. They're like,
you've sold me on it now. Like you can't now. You can't let me down.
No, I gotta find it, and I will, because it is like from my childhood, and it would be way up on my list, but it's never ever gonna happen. No one's gonna find this movie. My next one is equally as obscure. It's not even like I don't know who released this. Sandstar Family Entertainment was a VHS like mailer that you could sign up for in the 90s. This is a 1995 film. This came in my parents, for some reason, signed up for this. We loved movies. They would send a VHS tape to your house every month. And such classics as Big and Hairy. Seen that film? It's about a Sasquatch that plays basketball. It is great. That's also great. But no, this is Just Like Dad, which is probably the best of the films that were sent in the mail to me. The great Wallace Shawn plays his father. You've heard of this? Yeah! This film was, you know how every kid has that film that they watched hundreds of times? This was my film. This, if you can call it a film, straight to VHS mailer. I would drag my mattress out to the living room, and I would watch this every single night as I was going to sleep. I had this film, like, the score of this film is so burned into my mind that I could hear like one note, and I would recognize that it's the score. Like, I watched this movie a bazillion times. It is Wallace Shawn. Ben Diskin plays the main character, and Wallace Shawn is his dad, and he's like humiliated and like super embarrassed. He's got this super nerdy dad. He goes to a school where apparently if you have a cool dad, you're the coolest kid in school, because they have like this father-son picnic every year where they do like potato sack race and three-legged race and like softball and everything. And he hires a ringer. He goes to a gym and hires Nick Cassavetes. Yes, that Nick Cassavetes, the director. He plays the big muscle guy in this movie, who is a great actor. And he comes in to be his dad for the day, because he doesn't think he has a dad. It's just like a charming little like family movie. Father-son movie, of course, gonna hit me. This is probably why I'm such a big father-son movie person to this day, because I don't have like a horrible, tragic relationship with my father or anything, but I think watching this movie so much, and it hit me in the feels at a young age, really set me up to love father-son movies. But Just Like Dad, and this is the reason why it needs to be on this list, because it is a tragedy. There are DVDs of this film, but they have ruined it. It's like an Orson Welles situation, man. They have hacked it to pieces. It's supposed to be like, I don't know who put it out, like some Family Values got the rights to it and put it out, and they like cut out all the stuff that was deemed inappropriate. Like this movie gets to like, he gets mixed up with the mob at the end of this movie, and there's like gun shooting and stuff, and they like cut that out. They cut out lying, but it's like, that's the point of the movie. That's his freaking character arc that he learned. Like, you can't cut that out just because you don't want kids to lie. It's the epitome of what I hate about censorship. And I've bought 2 separate DVDs of this film, and both of them were hacked down. The one that I have now is less hacked down than the previous one. But yeah, Just Like That. This is the horrible artwork they put out for it too. It's like some anime. It basically looks like an animated movie. Ugh. Hate the people that cut that movie down. I need to find a complete DVD of that. This is DVD dreams. I'm so far beyond Blu-ray, because that's never gonna happen. I need this to be released on DVD without it being cut to ribbons by these horrible companies. But yeah, Just Like Dad. it was my childhood movie, man, and no one's ever heard of it. If you've actually heard of it, I am very shocked. I can't believe you've actually heard of that.
I think I've heard of it because I've heard you talk about it before.
Oh, probably.
Now that you're talking about it.
Probably.
I'm sorry to get your hopes up. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I am the only one that's ever heard of this movie. Chime in the comments if you have. If you haven't already clicked off the video at this point, because I've been rambling about a 1996 straight to home video release movie. But yeah, that was the big one. It hurts.
I think Vinegar Syndrome might, because Vinegar Syndrome did the WNUF Halloween special, which was kind of a niche little thing that you couldn't get your hands on. I feel like they could maybe do a cool release of something like that.
Maybe so, man. I that would make my year. I would pre-order that in a heartbeat. That's crazy. But yeah, that's one of those like kids movies that you love. I watched it pretty recently. Mostly just enraged about the cuts that were made, so I couldn't really judge if it held up or not, because I was so mad about that stuff. Ben-Hur: A Tale of the Christ, 1925 silent film, huge silent film. We've talked about it on the channel before. I would like that to get a separate release. We do own it inside the big Ben-Hur box set up there, but I think it's a DVD, is it not?
No, it's a Blu-ray.
It's actually
it's on the third disc. Yeah,
okay, yeah. But it's just inside that box set. I'd like to get that as a separate movie at some point, but I'm not super hurting for it because I own it there, so that's why I didn't make the list. Those were the big honorable mentions that I wanted to mention, especially Just Like Dad and Lucky 7. Check those movies out, especially Lucky 7. It is bonkers. But yeah, that is our video, guys. So we went on rambling forever, like we tend to do. Hopefully you're doing chores or in the car listening to us talk about movies. But yeah, that's our top 10. We will be back real soon to talk about our top 10 box sets that we like to see in this kind of same exact format. And we'll be back with another video, either a top 10 or a film discussion or maybe just an unboxing. Who knows? But we'll see you very soon.
Bow.